It was the early 90s. Batman fever had dominated the cartoon airwaves, and not to be outdone, Disney stepped up to the plate by greenlighting a passion project from a young man who would later create two of the best superhero cartoons of our time. Tune in as we look at what made Gargoyles a cult classic, and if it still deserves that title today.
Thank you for joining us on the inaugural episode of Tune In For What? I am one of your co-hosts, Alex, and I am joined by my sometimes friend...
Dustin. Sometimes friend, huh?
Depends on the day, time.
That's fair.
What you've done for me that day.
What have I done for you today?
I guess you gave me this water.
Exactly. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're a 2 on the friend scale.
Woo!
It goes to 100.
Oh, well, hey, I'm leveling up. Slowly but surely, I'll win my way into your heart. You sweet, sweet bastard. Anyhow, welcome to the first episode.
Yeah.
Alex, tell me a little bit about what we're doing here.
So this was the brainchild of us having some drinks one night and going down a rabbit hole of clicking on looking up different shows from our childhood on streaming, and just seeing if they held up. And we'd watch like intros or 5 minutes, and then we decided we could record this. Why not?
Yeah, let's give it a shot. In really, a little background on Alex and I, we're big nerds. We grew up with a lot of these cartoons, and actually some of the stuff that we hope to dive into is stuff we've never really seen before.
I have a feeling we'll pick some obscure stuff like here and there just to be like, this was a product of its time. What is it?
Yeah, 100%. And, I'm really excited to kind of venture deep into a lot of these kind of, cartoons from our past and other people's past, and even some of the what the hell were they thinking cartoons.
Oh, there's definitely going to be some of those.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't wait. I'm already kind of looking at some of our future episodes. I was like, ooh.
There's going to be a lot of them that are going to revolve around toy sales. That's going to be like a lot of the weird stuff where it's like the cartoon was made for marketing.
Yeah, oh man. Yeah, that just always brings me back to all I can think of when I hear that is Young Justice getting canceled because it didn't sell enough toys. And it was like,
that hurts.
What's funny is, speaking of Young Justice, there is a connection between Young Justice and the show we are doing today.
Is there?
There sure is. So today we are covering Gargoyles. Stone by day, Warriors by night.
I mean, I could read the entire Goliath intro, but I don't have to.
No. Not only do I want you to do it, I need you to do it in your best Keith David voice.
That's just going to be disrespectful to him, even if I try, because he has such a great bassy
his
baritone.
Voice is amazing. Yeah.
I'll do my best, and I will
this.
try not to go through it too long. I'll get through it quickly. 1,000 years ago, superstition and the sword ruled. It was a time of darkness. It was a world of fear. It was the age... This is bad. This is real bad. So I'm just going to do my normal speaking voice. It was the age of gargoyles, stone by day, warriors by night. We were betrayed by the humans we swore to protect, frozen in stone by a magic spell for 1,000 years. Now here in Manhattan, the spell is broken, and we live again. We are defenders of the night. We are Gargoyles.
So that actually, funny enough, I don't think they used the narration to kind of backpedal that story until the second season, right? After the first 13 episodes.
Yeah, because it was a trial.
I think at first it was just like them climbing walls and sound effects and stuff. But yeah, Gargoyles. Oh boy, Gargoyles. I loved this as a kid. Did you watch a lot of this as a kid?
I tried to, but it also kind of pissed me off as a kid. Because I was, you miss one episode because you're like, I went and hung out with my friend after school. And then suddenly it's like, oh, that was part 3 of 5.
Yeah.
And so I got really annoyed because I'd miss out on the continuations.
Yeah, we were kind of stepping into the era of this mid-90s, because I think this dropped in 1994 through 97.
Considering we're talking about it, we should know those.
Yeah. And so it dropped in the mid-90s, but we were getting into this range about where cartoons were taken a little bit more seriously. We were starting to see more continuity in shows. The X-Men animated series had some continuity. Spider-Man had tremendous amounts of continuity. Who would talk about missing an episode? Everything, every episode of that was like a part of like 9-episode plot. But Gargoyles really, it did it in such a creative and clever way where it wasn't like you literally had to watch the last episode to get this. It was just that we're going to come back to this plot point. At some point, like Macbeth will show back up. It may not be necessarily in this episode or in the next episode, but he's going to come back, and the stuff
The Terminator, he'll be back.
Yeah, is going to be really important. And you get to see a lot more of that in modern cartoons, especially. So I would say this is kind of ahead of its time for that.
Maybe in its continuity decisions and how they wanted to do that, their storytelling style and callbacks.
Yeah, and to touch on who created, Gargoyles, it was Greg Weisman and Frank Parr. Now, Greg Weisman went on to do Young Justice, which is, kind of the stinger right there over there. Oh, Young Justice is near and dear to my heart. And he did The Spectacular Spider-Man, which I will admit I've only seen the first season of, and I do know that the fan base is rampant that is the best version of Spider-Man that has existed in the animated.
So what you're saying is this guy kind of knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Well, he was my favorite fact about him is that he was a former English teacher and then somehow became an exec at Disney.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I do that?
Yeah, and he made the pitch. So originally Gargoyles was supposed to be this weird comedy thing.
Like along the lines of what Disney was putting out at the time or things that they had previously put out, like Tailspin, Rescue Rangers, something that's like a little more lighthearted but with some adventure.
Yeah, he wanted definitely kind of more of a tonal, kind of gray and human-esque kind of thing because he realized that the Disney afternoon block, the cartoon block, was really just all anthropomorphic animal, doing things. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, DuckTales, and Darkwing Duck, all that stuff.
And they were just going to do it, I think, initially as like a fish out of water. Like, they've been frozen for 1,000 years. How'd they deal with the modern times?
Yeah, which I think Futurama did it better, like just off the cusp there.
I mean, it's
like
apples and oranges, man. That's literally two.
Is it? They were both asleep for 1,000 years. They both wake up.
We'll have to visit Futurama and then do an entire episode debating about which one had a better 1,000-year sleep.
Off the top of my head, I think. Oh yeah, what if they're not actually asleep in the? No, I mean they claim to be asleep in the stone. Otherwise, it'd be like awake. It would be just a nightmare. 1,000 years awake in stone. Like, whoa,
that'd be terrifying.
Suddenly,
like you're in a coma.
Cute Disney. Yeah, suddenly, worse then because you're still like conscious. You're getting to see it and.
Oh, they would be insane coming out of that.
So yeah, Greg Weisman, he did these shows. And Frank Parr, let's talk about him for a brief second. So Frank Parr and a couple of other writers who definitely wrote some other episodes, but they pulled those people straight out of Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a husband and wife team that wrote the majority of the first season. They wrote 12 out of 13 episodes.
Yeah.
Michael Reeves and I think it's Bryn Reeves.
I think so. Yeah.
But I glanced at their history and they're pretty prolific through like the 80s and 90s and both worked on Batman the Animated Series and this was supposed to compete against that.
Yeah,
that's why it went into a dark realm instead of the happy-go-lucky adventure.
Yeah, Batman was hot at this time. Fox had a. That was a ringer. It was just pulling in, hand over fist and toy sales and everything like that. And you can really see where Batman wears the cape. They made the creative decision to have the gargoyles' wings wrap around them like they were wearing a cloak. And it had that dark atmosphere. In fact, they were only allowed to even exist at night. In the day they were stone. So, and you could really see a lot of those elements there. Yeah, Frank Parr, after that, he actually went to work on a couple of other superhero-ish shows. The first one being Spawn, which also starred Keith David, who was the voice of so the HBO version of Spawn. And then one of my other favorite superhero shows, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which I think is the quintessential necessity viewing if you want to I really need a real quick recap of Marvel. Give me 50 years worth of history.
Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, this does it. It hits all the high notes. It's great. So this was a powerhouse duo.
Well, along with the couple writers, I think that Michael Reeves and Bryn Reeves should also get a lot of credit because they had been writing like for cartoons in general, and like Michael Reeves, I believe, also worked on the Mask of Phantasm movie.
Yeah.
He got a screenwriting credit.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible looking at the history of the people that they put on this. And Disney, you can see the creative Disney touches still with this. I think the animation in particular looks really, really good. It's very fluid, but at least for the first couple of seasons. We're kind of, we'll get into the history of it a little bit. The third season,
we're just going to tiptoe lightly around the third season.
Yeah, but it's worth noting that this takes place in New York City, home of all superheroes. Let's touch a little bit on the main cast of characters, and we'll just kind of go to like a brief overview. So, the quick recap story, like Alex said, they're stoned, they're asleep. They wake up 1,000 years later. There, I believe, is, I don't know, I didn't count how many gargoyles there were, but I think there's 5.
There's 5 and a dog.
5 and a dog. A gargoyle dog.
Which is still very strange to me.
It's still Disney. Yeah, they're going to put some Disney touches on things.
We don't need like a Pluto situation in this.
So we got Goliath, who is the leader of the gargoyles. And at first, he is the only one with a name. And he is big, blue, the leader of the pack.
Purple.
Yeah, okay, purple. My toy looks a little blue, but, that's fine. I'll give you purple. It's dark, all right? I don't know.
It's purple, everybody.
Yeah. He's a little level-headed, but he's kind of quick to rage. He's kind of a combination of, like, Leonardo and Raphael if you just mashed him into one turtle.
Oh, these are all, like, caricatures of,
100%.
like, archetypes when you look at, like, how they're framing each individual person or gargoyle.
I know, it makes me wonder. I actually really like to see Keith David, who voices Goliath. And if you guys aren't familiar with Keith David, I'm sure you've heard his work in some way, shape, or form. I think most recently he played the president in Rick and Morty. He has got a deep, deep voice, like the perfect voice for this. But I would love for him and Kevin Conroy, who voices Batman, to switch places, like just read. Like each one of them do an episode of like, all right,
just do their own interpretation.
Yeah, and just see how that plays out. Then we've got pretty much the second in command, Brooklyn, who's kind of like the orange reddish one, right?
And he is definitely the Raphael.
You think he's the Raphael? You think he's like quick to jump into? I mean, maybe.
He's more of the sarcastic attitude one. Like Raphael was that. Like he was also a hothead, but he was more sarcastic, and I feel that that's how Brooklyn is.
That makes sense. And then while we're going down this road, we've got Lexington, who is
Donatello.
Yeah,
the smart one.
He's smart with machines. He's kind of tiny.
Which my favorite is that he's smart with machines and figures out everything super quick. And I'm like, dude, you've been asleep for 1,000 years. There's a lot to catch up on, and he just kind of gets it.
Yeah. And then we've got Broadway, who is, I guess, would be our Michelangelo of the bunch. But
yeah, I would say if we're keeping with the turtle theme, it's definitely like Michelangelo because he's always eating, which we will not talk about all the kind of fat jokes they throw his way because he's the bigger one of the group. It's the 90s, they do it.
Yeah, and he's played by Bill Fagerbakke, who... oh, come on. Why is the name escaping me? Patrick Starr from SpongeBob SquarePants. Yeah. So every time I hear Broadway speak, that's all I can see, though, is Patrick Starr. He's not as dumb as Patrick Starr.
But it's not too different vocally.
No, I'm pretty sure it's just his voice. We got Hudson, who is played by the great Ed Asner.
Still crazy that some of the voice cast that they get in this.
Oh, the cast in this is insane. And I was just going to call it, like, for now on, he's just Ed Asner. Ed Asner, the gargoyle. Hudson, old man. I love that he's like, he's already seen enough stuff. He's like, I'm just going to lay down.
Yeah, in a lot of the episodes, they're just like, Hudson, you stay behind and watch over the castle. I'm like, this castle is like, who can attack it? It's so high up. It's on top of a building.
Tower. He's just like, I'm just going to watch my stories, just watching TV.
He's literally just an old kind of curmudgeon guy.
Yeah, we got Bronx, who is the gargoyle dog.
Doesn't really do much.
Later, about halfway through the second season, we're introduced to Goliath's daughter, Angela, who joins the merry group.
Guess you probably should have mentioned Demona first.
Should have probably mentioned Demona first. She does show up first. I think Angela's in more episodes than Demona, so I just kind of had these listed by priority. But Demona would be one of the villains. Although, yeah, I mean, she is villainous. She is.
Yeah, it depends on the day. What are her needs? Does she need to side with them to further her goals?
Yeah.
Or can she do it alone? Because she'll do it alone and no problem. But she'll definitely do things where it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing to get her way.
100%. Yeah, she's all the villains here are very multi-layered.
Yeah, they're not as straightforward as like, I just want power in the end.
The next one is Mr. David Xanatos, who is like, what if Iron Man was a villain?
No, it's pretty great. I actually really... You gotta hate that guy. He's just like charismatic in his own way, but kind of a D-bag at times.
Oh, and played by the great Jonathan Frakes, who nails it. Like, definitely, yeah, that whole Iron Man evil. So, I think I mentioned this to you maybe off screen or off mic, but they named what they call the Xanatos Gambit is now a TV trope. And
You did mention this, but since I did not know this, what's the Xanatos Gambit?
The Xanatos Gambit is pretty much any time when a villain enacts a plan and they win no matter what the outcome.
It's like they win when they lose, even.
Exactly. And Xanatos is, he basically spawned this. This was his, like, every time he was like, oh, the Gargoyles broke up my gun smuggling thing. He's like, yeah, but they were insured for twice as much. I made double the amount of money. Xanatos. Yeah.
Everything's coming up Xanatos.
Yeah. And then I think I actually breezed over the other probably most main character here outside of Goliath, which is Eliza Maza. So the first human friend cop, very much a Beauty and the Beast story here.
Oh, especially when you get into like Hunter's Moon.
Oh, yeah, for
which
sure.
We'll talk about later. But it definitely becomes a Beauty and the Beast thing where they're definitely getting together.
So that, I would say, those are like the main characters. They show up through most of the episodes.
Owen, Xanatos is like assistant. Sure. He's in a ton of stuff and kind of always around.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't really do much per se.
Yeah, he's very important in The Gathering.
Yeah.
Like his big reveal of who he really is.
When you get into the more Shakespearean side of Gargoyles, which we haven't even mentioned the fact that this show is probably the only kid show I know of that dives this heavy into like Shakespearean myths.
Yeah,
like with Macbeth and the Three Witches, and like really playing into that. And
oh yeah, there's like the Trials of Avalon and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty intense. And going back real quick to the guest stars, or to the kind of the voice acting cast that also helped out with this, there was a very like big common theme amongst all these.
Could it be Star Trek?
Oh boy, Star Trek, and not just one Star Trek.
I don't even think we need to go through like who they played. No. Just mention like just the rundown of names.
Oh sure, you got Avery Brooks, Marina Sirtis, LeVar Burton. We got Kate Mulgrew. No, I'm going to screw up some of these. We got Brent Spiner, Michael Dorn. They wanted Patrick Stewart to play multiple roles. He was originally they tried to get him to play Goliath. He declined, or they couldn't afford him. They tried to get him to play Macbeth.
Because they're like, less episodes, maybe we can get him.
And they couldn't get him, and they wanted him to play King Arthur, and they couldn't get him.
He would have been a great Macbeth.
I
don't think he has a good enough, like, deep voice for Goliath, but maybe it's biased because of who it ended up being, and it matches perfectly.
Yeah. I did look up some of the other guest stars that were not basically Star Trek related, and man, oh man, were there some guest stars for this.
Well, I know Clancy Brown was one.
Clancy Brown's
He's in the first episode. Yeah. He's actually the head Viking that destroys the Gargoyles, or that works with the Scotsman or whatever to like betray the Gargoyles, but he's the head Viking if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we've got Jim Cummings, Tim Curry, Dedrick Bader, CCH Pounder, which I had no idea she was in this. I love her. Jim Belushi, Tony J, Tony Shalhoub, And rest in peace, Mr. James Avery, the Shredder himself.
Pretty prolific voice cast.
Absolutely. Like, those are some heck of a voice cast. So, looking at it here, kind of getting into the seasons and episodes. So, it ran for 3 seasons for a total of 78 episodes. And I would say most of those are pretty good. Most hold up.
I mean, I don't know. So season 1 is 13 episodes. Season 3 is 13 episodes. Season 2 is 52? Yeah, I was like, what does that make it? 52-ish or so? Mm-hmm. I would have to go back and watch all 52 to know if it actually 100% holds up. Because I'm sure that there's some weird filler episodes. Because that was when they also like had to grow the writing staff. And
yeah, I think you can really see that a bit in the Avalon.
Yeah.
I think that's when you really start to see it. When they do the Trials of Avalon and things get a little... there's some really good episodes. There's some high highs and some low lows a bit.
Like that one where Hudson and Goliath just spend a whole episode playing backgammon at the castle.
I would watch the hell out of that.
Could you imagine their trash talk back and forth?
I'm just trying to imagine what Goliath... Because I still feel like they would have to wear the outfits. Like, they wouldn't just be them with a racket. They'd have to find, like...
backgammon, not badminton.
Oh, I was thinking badminton.
No, even more boring. The suitcase game. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It's been a long time. I don't know why I had badminton, but I really like badminton.
But I would love to see them in those, like, short shorts hitting around an old shuttlecock.
I forget that's the name of that. Yeah. Woo. Okay. So, we did watch a handful of episodes to help us prepare for this, to get back in the spirit of it and to make sure that it kind of holds up and all that good
stuff.
Didn't
go too deep. We didn't sit and go, let's watch all of it. Because we've realized that if we're going to do this week after week, we have to make it reasonable, and we may be picking shows that have 5 or 6 seasons. So we're trying to pick maybe the greatest hits and maybe the finale, kind of figure that out.
Yeah, and I will say that we'll just because we do it now doesn't mean we can't come revisit it again in the future.
Do like a revised episode.
This is episode 1, so clearly there's going to be a lot of fine-tuning that needs to happen.
Nope, this one's going to be perfect.
Nail it in one?
This is it.
Love it. So, what was the first episode you watched, Alex?
I kind of went in order of when they were released. So the very first one would have been Deadly Force, which was their controversial gun safety episode, where the gist of the episode is that Broadway gets obsessed with this Western, and he watches it a ton, and then one night after seeing the movie, he goes and visits Elisa, and she's a cop, and puts her, and grabs her gun and starts playing with it, and accidentally shoots her. Damn near killing her.
Yeah.
Actually, she does flatline at one point in the episode.
Yeah, I thought that part was... I mean, you can tell that they're really trying to push the severity of getting shot, right? Like that's,
oh, yeah. Like, when they describe... When the doctor... when Elisa's family asks the doctor to describe, what happened, or in terms of the injury, I actually wrote what happened, or what the doctor says, because it was gnarly. It wasn't just it hit her lung, and we hope she pulls through. No, the doctor's like, well, it ricocheted off her collarbone, nicked her heart muscle, passed through her right lung, and lodged at the base of her spine.
How? That is... Well, I almost feel like I want a diagram of that, because...
I'm just thinking, kids' cartoon is being pretty graphic about where this bullet's path was.
So it hit the collarbone, and then the base of the spine. Well, I guess at the top.
I'll do commentary. Dustin is tracing his finger across his own body right now. Not in a sensual way, but in trying to figure out his own anatomy.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to do the math here, because that sounds like some magic bullet.
Well, it goes through, hits up here.
Right.
And then...
What does it do after
ricochet?
Okay, ricochets.
Nicks her heart muscle.
Okay.
Goes into her right lung. Mm-hmm. And then base of the spine.
Well, see the trajectory there. Now that bullet's already turned twice.
Well, there's resistance in the muscles it's hitting, so it can change its trajectory. It's like something going through water or air. There's resistance, and it can change its path slightly.
You know what? This is a kid's cartoon. We'll just be led to believe. But
there's going to be a lot of us questioning some of the logic behind it. Do you know what? I'm sure that someone read a story somewhere, and that's where they came up with all that dialogue. Sure.
Hey, getting shot, bad. End of story. Don't get shot. Don't play with guns. All that. I actually really appreciated the even the blood in the episode, which I understand that it was edited. They had to edit
the original shooting of her showed her in a wider shot laying on her kitchen floor in a pool of her own blood, deemed too gruesome, I suppose, for a kids' cartoon in the afternoon. They digitally just went in and zoomed in on the shot, so you only saw her face.
Yeah.
But when Hudson does take her to the hospital and drops her off on that ER stretcher, Broadway. Who'd I say?
Hudson.
Oh, God, he would never leave the castle. Let alone go see a movie. One of those mover pictures. When he sets her down on the stretcher, they actually show, like, literal blood on his hands. And I was like, that was cool that they kept that in.
Yeah. Which... I guess what kind of makes this so funny, funny, I guess.
No, tell me the humor in this. Tell me how funny gun violence is.
Well, so you get an episode like this, right, where we're diving into gun violence. And we've seen other shows do this. Like Static Shock is another one that I remember very clearly, a gun episode. But 90% of the time, nobody's firing actual bullets, right? Like they always have these like high-powered laser rifles.
Are you bringing up the weapons that they end up going after in the episode?
Because this is the episode where they go after the gun smugglers, or Broadway in particular. Well, no, that's not true. Broadway and Goliath, because Goliath is led to believe that Eliza was shot by these gun smugglers that she was looking to bust. It
was as simple as he was going to see her, and then the police are talking to her, Eliza's folks, and saying that they think they know who did it. And Goliath overhears that and goes on a vendetta.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And how. There are some scenes when Goliath is chasing, I think the villain's name in this episode is Draken, or something like that.
Drakon. I think it's Drakon.
There's a shot where Draken's running up a staircase, and it just cuts behind him, and it shows Goliath running up after him. And it is terrifying looking, where he is just
eyes
scaling,
glowing, raging.
He must be scaling like 6 steps a time, which is like, and then proceeds to he gets like Draken loses him for a second, only for him to just appear underneath the floor out from under him, and I was like, yeah.
And then he just one hand holds him by an ankle over, about to drop him.
At the end of the episode, Goliath doesn't kill him. No surprise there. Goliath. I don't think they ever just straight up show you Goliath just killing a person. That would probably take away from the magic of Goliath being this hero we're supposed to stand behind. If he's just like, no, he dropped him. He just flatlined.
Actually, he just ripped the leg off and let him fall.
Could you imagine like the strength of that beast, of that man, like Goliath?
You can say gargoyle. It's what he is.
Oh, I imagine that would be like trying to box like an orangutan. It would just be like, why? It would just rip your face right off.
Because they're supposed to have like tougher skin and be strong.
Yeah, at one point, like somebody tries to like stab Goliath with a knife, and he just kind of catches it or a sword rather, and he just catches it with his hand. He's like, what the hell is this?
What are you doing with this?
Out of here. Yeah, like it's a kid's toy. So at the end, Eliza pulls through. Her parents are extremely grateful. The family. She goes home, has a talk with Broadway, and does she not talk?
This is not how the end of this episode goes.
No.
It's Goliath after Goliath and Broadway after their warehouse fiasco go to her, and she's still in the hospital.
Okay. I do know that after this episode, they continue every time they ever show Eliza taking off her gun. They show her locking it up.
Putting it in a lockbox.
Yeah, so maybe that's what I'm confusing it with. So does she not have a talk? She has a talk with Broadway, though.
Yeah,
right?
where she takes responsibility for not being careful with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get her taking the responsibility that, she now has drop-in visitors.
Yeah, all the time. Literally drop in. They just drop in through the roof. So she has like a weird kind of skylight into... she's got like the perfect house. Could you imagine if she lived on like the 3rd story apartment, like no fire escape, just
or if she has a basement unit instead of Goliath and company swooping in, they're just like, "Is it Eliza? Yeah,
yeah. It makes for a much worse, interactive experience.
But I will say one of my favorites is Owen when he's at the police station.
Oh, sure.
And Eliza Eliza is talking to her boss, the captain, about the guns that were stolen. And she's like, non-projectile weapons? Like a laser? And then Owen, just not missing a beat out of nowhere, says, actually, almost like the pushing the nose on up, or the glasses up on the nose. And he's just like, actually, this is the latest technology and high collimation charged particle beam technology. The laser's just for aiming.
So yeah, after Deadly Force, I ended up watching. I know I didn't put this on our syllabus, but I ended up watching The Gathering. As a kid, I remember these two episodes really calling out to me. It was the combination of everything they went through in Avalon. They just get back to New York, and Xanatos and his wife Fox have a kid, and basically,
who I think is named Alex.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly,
baby Alexander, Alexander Xanatos, and Alexander Xanatos. That's got to be a Lex Luthor thing. I think Lex Luthor has a son named there's Alexander Luthor. It's supposed to be. I might actually be Lex's name. Now that I say that out loud, I'm pretty sure that was what the Lex stands for. But anyways, so has a kid. Turns out Fox's mom is actually the queen of Avalon, and her husband, I think it's Oberon.
Wow, this gets real weird.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Fox didn't know. Fox has no magic. And so they want to take the kid because that kid needs to learn magic. So they're going to steal Xanatos and Fox's kid.
Weird.
They put all of New York to sleep, and then they basically wage this war on Xanatos' house. And it amounts to everything coming to fold. So we're talking we've got other characters who showed up. We've got other villains who are showed up, like Fox's father, who happens to be one of Xanatos' rivals, kind of the Justin Hammer to Iron Man. Mm-hmm. Bit of an older guy comes in, tries to save the day, tries to protect his grandson. Xanatos uses all the tricks he's got up his sleeve. The Gargoyles show up, and they're trying to stop Oberon.
I mean, they do reference the only thing I know about is that they reference that Xanatos is thankful to the Gargoyles at this.
Yes, point. This is really the turning point. Oh, okay. Xanatos decides at the end of this that he is no longer the villain the Gargoyles need to fear, because the Gargoyles do end up saving the day. Well, actually, kind of Owen ends up saving the day. So this is the big reveal that Owen the whole time has been Puck, the trickster.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, it's kind of like Loki. It'd be like finding out. This would be the equivalent of finding out that Jarvis was actually Loki the whole time.
Oh, that needs to happen.
Right? That happens in a Secret Invasion in the comics.
Oh, really?
It's not Loki, but it's Jarvis is a Skrull, yeah. And spoilers, I guess, for anyone waiting on Secret Invasion.
No!
Who hasn't read the comic in the last 10 years. Anyways, so he turns out to be Puck. Tries to whoop Oberon. He does a fairly decent job. And then Goliath basically comes in with a Hail Mary play, which is whoa, what if? Hear me out. Since we got Owen here, / Puck, what if he teaches the kid magic? And they're yeah, okay.
Oh, this was the compromise?
This was the compromise. And Oberon being yeah, but I'm going to have my cake and eat it too, banishes Puck. Puck is no longer allowed to use magic unless he's training Alex. And on top of that, he is banished from Avalon, forever. He can never go back.
Bummer.
Yeah. It's not quite what Puck wanted. So, Puck still kind of loses in the end, but...
No Xanatos gambit for...
Well, the thing I liked about this is the reveal that Puck was, really enthralled with Xanatos, and he basically offered Xanatos either, hey, I will grant you one wish of your choice, or a lifetime of servitude. And Xanatos chose servitude. He's no, I'll just take the servitude. I don't need any wish in the world. I will take that.
Well, that's Xanatos is a billionaire.
Yeah. I just thought that was kind of a cool, because especially for a man who just wants nothing but power, and that's kind of the driving force, but he's just this entrepreneur who constantly wants to grow and become more and more and more, that he would choose this. I think that kind of spoke volumes about Xanatos as a character, as a villain.
I always felt that he was someone that was wanting to prove himself to people around him, so he wanted to be.
There's a lot of that.
He wanted to do it on his own, because I think There's like he has like his dad didn't believe in him or something, and maybe, and so yeah, I always thought he wanted to do it on his own. So I guess it does make sense to have get the servitude versus the one wish.
The one wish, yeah. I really enjoyed that episode. Those episodes. It's a 2-parter, and I loved it just because it just kind of wrapped up the entire Avalon arc really nicely for me.
God, if I jump back in there, I don't barely remember any of the Avalon stuff, so it'd just be like a bunch of strange magic characters. New York's asleep, and I'm just like, what the hell is going
on? You get
on?
to see LeVar Burton play a giant spider, and that's always cool. So
sold.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, you and I think, went on to the Hunter's Moon trilogy,
which is pretty great, and it's kind of the official ending of the canon of the show.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into after Hunter's Moon, because then we'll go talk about the journey.
Yeah, the rough third season. But the Hunter's Moon, I agree. I thought these 3 episodes, as like a nice little 3-part finale, was fantastic.
Yeah, and like I think it's always good to just give it like a very rough rundown. Mm-hmm. This one is pretty much Demona scars like a kid back in like the 994 AD when the show initially starts. She scratches him on the face, and then from there on he has a vendetta against her specifically, but all gargoyles and every generation of this guy's family, or this kid's family when he grows up. But every generation keeps hunting with the same mission to get her, and then kind of just to get any gargoyles they come across. And that's it. And this is just them now in the modern age in New York, and Goliath's clan is involved in that now.
Yeah, I kind of reference them to almost like the Belmont clan, like from Castlevania. And it's just like every generation they're going to go out and they're going to hunt this mythical beast, and it was the gargoyle. What I enjoyed about this is that there was this circle of hate and violence that you saw, you know, because it's clear, like, they show a flashback to these kids in the 80s. So there's three siblings now, and their father takes them and he's like, I've trapped her. I've trapped Demona. She's on top of this building. I'm going to go kill her.
Was it take your kids to work day?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You're like, well, look at me, kids. You know, you're going to be real proud of your dad. Proceeds to run up the building, get killed. And like,
Demona throws him off the building, or he falls, either way. And they don't cut away. Nope. And then it's just like just out of frame is when he hits the ground. But they show him falling and screaming. And then his kids saw it.
Yeah, in case there was any, like, I wonder if he lived. No, there's no curiosity there. He is dead. He fell from a great height. He is dead.
Yes. His kids' faces say it all. But, yeah, there's like a lot of very interesting things that occur in this, because the three siblings in the modern age kind of infiltrate their way into people's lives that surround the gargoyles.
Yeah, there's Jason, who ends up becoming Elisa Mazza's new partner.
Correct. Yes.
There's Robin, who ends up working for Demona, who, by the way, can turn into a human in daylight.
Yeah, so she never sleeps.
So she never sleeps, and she has like she has this kind of rival business to Xanatos, kind of this entrepreneurship. And then there's John, who is probably kind of, you know, I'm trying to think of like who I think the John, and was also in Peter Pan, who was kind of like the young kid who was kind of like the lighthearted, like, I'm just going to do what my siblings are doing, and he kind of follows that. Like his heart's not really in it.
No, and he's the one that questions a lot of like, why are we going after these other gargoyles when we've already found the one that is our like family mission?
Yeah, and he's infiltrated as a reporter, and he's mostly interviewing like Xanatos and the castle and looking around for the gargoyles.
Yeah, and he finds like stone skin, like old stone skin, to kind of show that the gargoyles have been here at some point, like fairly recently.
Yeah. So all this to say is that they finally find the gargoyles. Of course, it's not Demona they find, but they find Goliath and his crew of gargoyles. Proceed to basically fight them. They end up throwing Angela or shooting Angela off a rooftop.
Yeah, they capture her in one of their electric net kind of devices, and she kind of, I guess, passes out, and from that falls off the roof. Yeah,
a good fall, hits a car, like
caves it in pretty much.
Yeah, they have to take her. She basically dies, or is about to die.
She's near death at this point.
Elisa has to come in.
She does die, and then
CPR,
does CPR, yeah.
Brings her back. she turns to stone to basically heal. But all this to say is that now Goliath is just seeing red. He's no longer...
Oh, the rest of the other episodes, he's just a giant rage monster.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, the other gargoyles are doing their best to kind of calm him down off the edge. And he's like, no, what's funny for a Disney show, too, they did not shy away from the kill word.
Oh, no, he was out for blood.
Yeah, I mean, he says just as much. He's like, I'm not going to, it wasn't like, I'm going to end you, or I'm going to make sure you expire. It was like, I'm going to kill that man.
The one thing we're neglecting is, what's Demona up to this whole time? So a little, like... Plot B, we'll say, which becomes very important, is this whole time Demona is trying to secure DI-7, which is a potent concentrated disinfectant. And the reason I'm saying all this is because you don't know what her plan is until much later, and it just like she's just scavenging random things around the city. Her company is also making this weird, I don't know enough about biology to know, but it's pretty much a virus. And if you add it to an antigen, it becomes bad, or a pathogen, it can become this massive cure. That's really all they led on. And then through some of the flashbacks, they show her gathering certain items. Like one's a tablet, another one is I think it's called a prayer statue, and it's a gargoyle, like a little mini gargoyle.
Which is hidden in like another gargoyle statue.
It's the base of a gargoyle statue.
I was like, that's a little weird. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The B plot, while... sets up a lot of this, was not the most interesting part of these episodes.
No, definitely everything to do with the Hunters and Goliath's clan were much more interesting than anything Demona was doing. But her plan was just pure evil when you get to what was actually going to happen if she succeeded.
Yeah, her goal was to combine basically science and technology.
Well, science is technology. You mean science and magic.
Science and magic. Sorry, you're right. Science, technology, and magic and basically wipe out all of mankind.
Well, what's funny is she says all intelligent creatures. And then it makes me wonder, like, dogs, dolphins.
Yeah, I had the same question. It was just like wipe out all life but them.
But the prayer statue, it plays an important part in that specifically is the reason gargoyles will be saved.
Right. And so as we kind of continue through these episodes, we learn, the Hunters' kind of vindictiveness, that they're trying to kill the gargoyles. Jason and Robin don't care if the gargoyle's Demona or any gargoyle, they just want to kill all gargoyles.
They also don't care about collateral damage. When they shoot missiles at the clock tower where the gargoyles live, that they track them to, and because it literally pretty much destroys the entire police station.
Yeah, the clock tower, their home is on top of a police station, and they fire missiles. Although Jason does have feelings for Eliza, and in realizing that they just fired missiles at that,
and on his weird hover bike.
Yeah, his weird hover bike. Yeah, grabs Eliza and gets out of there. And
yeah,
so the gargoyles have now lost their home. It's been wrecked.
One of my favorite lines, though, from Goliath to show like how, lack of a better word, pissed he is when he's talking to Demona in the cell because they get captured on the airship for a short time. And Demona says something along the lines like, well, you can have both. And it's like have a little bit of two things, one of which is vengeance. And then Goliath just looks at her and says, there is no such thing as a little vengeance. Damn, Goliath.
Yeah.
That's such a good line, though.
Yeah, it was great. Like
I want to hear Batman say that.
Right. Oh, no such thing as a little vengeance. Yeah.
Not a bad Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I got to work on it.
Do you practice in front of a mirror?
Every morning. Get up.
Those are your positive affirmations, but you do it in the Batman Kevin Conroy voice. Yeah.
No such thing as a little vengeance.
Not as good as the first one.
Oh, damn. I'll try it. Got to work on it. So, no, I mean, we'll kind of fast forward to kind of the end of this episode, or the episodes, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of kind of cat and mouse. They're trying to hunt them down. There's a tracking device, all of this. But needless to say, it comes down to like a final showdown.
In the showdown, there are some very interesting character moments that occur. It is worth noting that in the end of the second episode, though, Eliza and Jason fall off of a dam and disappear. Presumed dead. Mm-hmm. That is an important thing to say leading up to the final confrontation. Yeah. So they're MIA.
With this in mind, John's heart is now more in it. It wasn't in it at first, but now they think that they killed his brother. So now it's...
But Robin then is like, haven't we seen enough death?
Yeah, so they kind of switch
I don't want to lose
places.
you too.
Yeah, like I've already lost one brother. I don't want to lose two
Like
brothers.
she's more along the lines of like, what if we just walk away?
Yeah, so this big showdown all happens at a church, an abandoned church. Damona's putting together her master plan, and yeah, so he's putting together his master plan, and then John and Robin are going to show up to stop the plan. Meanwhile, we've got the Gargoyles have now shown up for their vengeance, so everyone just shows up for this one big showdown.
It's a pretty cool showdown because the hunters now have like robotic armor on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, very cool.
Well, they've also brought the media. So now the media is being alerted that the presence of gargoyles, this is a real thing.
Oh, John was pushed, I think, by his siblings as his reporter persona to go on the news and say that they suspect gargoyles are the ones that actually destroyed the police station.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they already generated media hate for gargoyles.
Yeah, they did it. They did his whole kind of ploy, and so it really kind of surfaces. So now we've got this big showdown, and then near the end of the showdown, Jason and Lisa show back up.
Bum, bum, bum.
Right, John, in trying to attack Goliath, Jason ends up kind of taking the hit,
getting in the way, blocking the shot.
Says like, I don't want any more violence and blood. Takes the hit. John then having, nearly killed his brother, but now paralyzed his brother.
And I'm still very curious in the time that Eliza and Jason were gone, how whatever conversation totally changed his mind about the entire way he was raised. I'm curious of that conversation more than anything. That'd just be really cool.
Yeah, there was a C plot there we didn't see.
Yeah.
And so that happens. We've got all of that, which is, and then John, and very much kind of going back to the Deadly Force episode, this is the part where John is like, what have I done? And what have I done? What have you made me do? And like suddenly it wasn't my fault anymore.
There's like a switch that suddenly, what did you make me do?
It was Goliath being like, what have you made me do? Why'd you make me do this? Like, I have to kill you. And so they beat John. John gets, I think, locked up, or I forget exactly the outcome. Or no, I think he escapes.
He escapes and flies off. And that's the bummer about the third season because he never comes back, and that would have been such a good villain to bring back.
Oh, so I do have news about that. And I'll wait for just a second. But real quick, in the other room, Damona's fighting Brooklyn. And has beaten Brooklyn. That happens off camera. We don't get to see their fight, but she beat Brooklyn. She's now put together her thing. If she breaks this vial, it ends all life. So Goliath does the only thing he knows what to do: smash stuff. And he grabs the.
So I'm just thinking like Hulk smash,
Goliath smash.
He's smarter than that.
He's very elegant. Yeah. And there's many times they show him like reading a book and stuff. I always appreciated that. The very Beauty and the Beast moment where he show him, and you can tell that's what they were going for. But he takes the gargoyle statue and he smashes it on the ground.
And he's just like, now we all go.
Yep. He's like...
And then Damona just takes the
Hail
gamble.
Mary, and just throws it in the air. Goliath catches it. My question is, she mentions, like, if it breaks, like, that's it. That's the end of life. And it's like, does somebody have to look after this vial, this glass vial, to, like, the end times? Just, like...
Maybe it just goes to a warehouse, like the Ark of the Covenant at the end of Indiana Jones. It just goes to a warehouse.
Could you imagine if somebody, like, had a forklift accident in that warehouse? Just wiped out all life on Earth.
The end of the world because someone's listening to like music on their headphones, like, not paying attention.
Yeah, he just lifts the thing and it just breaks the vial, and it's like, well, that's it. You just wiped out all life on Earth.
Well done.
Could you? Yeah, imagine being that guy, that warehouse worker, and you're like at the pearly gates. And
I'd like to think it's Steve Urkel. Did I do that?
Is that Jamal White? Is that who played Urkel? I think so. I just love the idea of Jamal White being the guy driving a forklift in a
ends the world.
Ends the world. So yeah, the outcome of this, Robin. I think Robin does get locked up.
I think it's more of an assumption.
Yeah.
We don't really see what happens to her. John flies off in his rage, and then Jason ends up in the hospital where that's when we find out he's paralyzed.
Right.
But he does a really good job of like talking about how he doesn't just need to heal physically, but heal himself mentally. Like that's the more trouble her part.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really an elegant way of putting it.
Yeah, this show did a really good job with their villains. And even this episode, like, you get to watch all three go on a very different path than where they started. And they only had a few episodes to kind of sum all this up, and they do a great job.
So the big little points of this ending is where Xanatos officially welcomes them back to the castle.
Yeah, because their other home, the clock tower's gone.
Yeah, and this is where he says that he owes them a debt of gratitude because they saved his son. So he's trying to repair that relationship with them, being like, I'm not your enemy anymore, and you can stay back at your ancestral home, the castle. This is also, I think, the first time we get to see the Beauty and the Beast finally have their kiss.
Yes.
And I'm sure there is no fanfic written out there of this and where it could have gone.
Yeah, you can really see the Beauty and the Beast moment there.
Yeah.
Real quick, there is an episode in the 3rd season that was sent to an Australian Disney company, and they had a different way of animating things, and they didn't get a chance to review any of the source material, so they just had to wing it. And they kind of drew Eliza Mazza to look like Jasmine, but more importantly, they gave her this like sexy walk and these pouty lips, and you can like really see it. Like every walk she does, it's like full hip thrust. I'm
thinking of just like Jessica Rabbit, like just kind of oozing a bit more, like oozing
almost
sex.
like that. Yeah, like she like very flirty. Like way over the top,
like a much different character.
Yeah, it does not look right for the way that.
Now I kind of need to see that because she's always like such a just tough and yeah.
Oh yeah,
and see her like more of that, like that just seems out of character for her and out of personality.
Right, and it'd be one thing if she was like taken over by a spirit. Like it would be great if they animated her like that. If it was like, oh, there was some like succubus who was like taking over, her body and doing something like that. I'm like, yeah, that checks out. But just to have like a normal Eliza episode and have her like sexy swagger and play with her hair in this flirty way.
I mean, they still make her feminine at times and stuff
100%.
Throughout the show. As tough as she is, but that's weird because she's not playing like.
No. There's a Halloween episode where I think she actually dresses up as Belle.
Wow, they're really not leaning away from that at all.
Subtle. Yeah. So that really is listed as the canonical ending. And that's the end of season 2, The Hunter's Moon.
Yep, and then...
So season 3, a little backstory here, is ABC merged with Disney. And this moved from basically an afternoon show, like to a Monday through Friday after school programming, to a Saturday morning cartoon. They brought in a new creative team.
Pretty much every single person, I think, was let go, and the only episode that had anything to do with the old crew was the first episode.
Greg Wiseman, I think, was going to be credited as like an executive producer, and he asked not to be listed because all he did was say no to everything they tried to pitch in. So he's like, I don't want the credit for this.
No, you're going to be our executive producer. No.
Hard pass. You can keep my name off the credits.
I think he wrote The Journey.
He did. He wrote a lot of The Journey. Not all of it, but most of it. Like, that episode was mostly already done. And there is not a lot of subtlety in that the villains in The Journey are straight up like the KKK.
Yes. They even wear hoods.
Yeah.
And they even remark about the fact that they're not, like, they're hiding behind the hoods and it's cowardly act. Like, that's what Goliath calls them out on.
Yeah. And so this episode's not bad. I don't think it's as good as Send Off or anything as Hunter's Moon was. It goes in. It actually really takes, like, because Goliath really isn't the focus of this episode, or the Gargoyles in general. In fact, it's mostly what's his name, Vinny?
It's Vinny or Billy or...
It's like, this one-off character who's made a couple of little appearances and almost like a goofy... Like, the Gargoyles kept getting in his way, and he, like, pied one of them in the face.
Just one of those background characters that you see him periodically.
Yeah. And this is like them, the villains are basically like, hey, Vinny, why don't you take it one step further? Let's kill a guy.
Well, no, the best part about it is Vinny, I guess we'll go with Vinny, because I don't remember either what his name is. But he's saying it on the news because now the public knows because of the events of Hunter's Moon. The Gargoyles are real, so everyone's afraid of him now. But Vinny on the news is like, yeah, I cornered one of them. I'm not going to do an accent. That's bad. No New Yorker Alex or accent for Alex. But he's pretty much just like, yeah, I cornered one of them and I got my revenge. And it just leaves it at that, and then gets notified of this group called the Quarrymen who invite him to a meeting and all this. Well, the Quarrymen are pretty much the KKK, and they just want to destroy all gargoyles.
Yeah, they got hoods, crest, hammers.
But that's the best part is then later Vinny admits that his revenge, and he's not like hiding it. He's just like, no, my revenge was I threw a cream pie in one of their faces or something. It's like, so you pied one. These guys are going to murder every gargoyle.
He's like, whoa, that's too far.
That escalated quickly.
I do like that because he was on the news. He gets a security job in Japan. Yeah.
It's just like,
what?
Some dude on the news, and then someone's like, that's the guy I want at my Japanese branch of my company.
So, funny enough, the villain in this episode, the one who leads the Quarrymen, is named John Castaway. And the reason I bring that up again, John Castaway.
Was this supposed to be?
So, in the comic book continuation of the show,
which we will say, the comic book continuation is supposed to start from the end of season 2.
Correct. So, yeah, it starts, and so the start of season 1, the journey, the villains and stuff, that's pretty much set in place. But John Castaway is not his last name. Like, he was cast away from his family. So it's supposed to be the same John Canmore. Meanwhile, Robin becomes Hunter. Like, her name is Hunter. She's like now this kind of weird superhero-ish character, and recruits the Redemption Squad, which is basically their version of the Suicide Squad. It pulls a bunch of villains.
I will say the Redemption Squad does not have the same ring to it.
No, it does not. It does not. But yeah, this was supposed to be kind of, and this was featured like in the Bad Guys. So yeah, this was featured in the comic book spinoff, The Bad Guys. Gargoyles, The Bad Guys.
Led by Amanda Baller.
What's funny is they had CCH Pounder in this show, and I would have loved for her to have played like a knockoff. She played Amanda Waller in the Justice League cartoon and stuff.
That's great.
She's a fantastic voice actress. So yeah, I thought that was cool. I was like, oh man, that would have been worth seeing. You know, they got the bad guys together, kind of this weird Redemption
Squad.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who all is part of it. It's like Dingo, Fang, Matrix. A lot of these are kind of like villains who showed up a few times. It was pretty good. So yeah, the third season's really not worth revisiting a whole lot. You watched another episode, I think, of the third season.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty silly. It's Broadway Goes to Hollywood, where to fix the Gargoyles media image, Fox is saying like, Broadway, I can make you a star. And then they go to Hollywood, and then it's not good. It's just all over the place.
You know what a lot of these writers in the third season ended up writing prior to this? X-Men. The animated series.
That kind of makes more sense.
A little bit. You can definitely see it. Having known that and then watching that, I was like, oh, I see.
There's just like a bit of unfocusedness, and like the episode itself was just like all over the place, where it's like Fox stages a plane crash that Broadway can save, and then, you know, later on, ex-members of who were Fox's gang or TV show, The Pack, like 2 of those members show back up as like mercenaries to like capture Broadway and put him in this suit that's like a cybernetic suit to make him like, to force him shoot something. It's just like it's all over the place, and then Fox gets involved, and it's just weird. Yeah,
and I kind of remember, you know, and I'm not gonna, you know, we'll do a whole episode on the X-Men at some point, but a lot of the X-Men stuff that I remember, it had kind of that weird manic pacing. Like, there's a lot of it that I really love, and it's near and dear to my heart. And that theme song will always go down as like one of the best, most catchy theme songs I've ever heard.
It definitely is one of the best.
But I will say that the writers and like some of the writing, and it was just kind of this almost like manic pacing of now we're here. And you can see that in the third season of Gargoyles. We're like, we're doing this. And it's like, it's not terrible. It's just comparatively to the first 2 seasons, not as good.
Not as interesting.
Yeah.
I felt that they took some risks in the second season from some of the episodes I glanced at that seemed to have some payoffs.
Now, it's worth noting that this was a show that was originally supposed to run, like when the second season ran, it was supposed to be, you came in and it was like a Monday through Friday was going to be a new episode. So we're going to get a whole season. So the Avalon arc really only lasted, I think, 20 episodes. But it felt a lot longer as a kid.
Well, think about it. That's an entire month of every day.
It would have been. So, except, unfortunately, it kept getting canceled for the O.J. Simpson trial. So, what would have been a month of cartoons turned into 6 months.
Oh, my God.
It took them 6 months to get through those 20 episodes.
I guess that makes sense. That would have been roughly around 95.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I did not think about that.
Yeah.
And I forget how big of a trial that was growing up and how it was on everything.
Yeah, they made us watch it at school. Like we would sit down and have to watch it. But yeah, so 6 months. That's how long that arc took. And that is what a lot of people kind of credit to being like what really kind of hurt the series. It just felt like it dragged on because the Avalon arc in particular felt kind of fillerish. There were definitely some segments in that. It'd be like going back and watching those like 100 episodes of Naruto after the whole Sasuke thing in the original series, and it's like you don't need to watch those. There's not some of it's important, not all of it's going to carry.
Yeah. See, I don't remember the Avalon episodes as well as you remember them.
Yeah,
but I also missed quite a lot.
I just remember like them. It was funny because I reread it and like, oh, they're only in Avalon for 20 episodes. I was like, wow, that felt like so much longer as a kid. Like I felt like Avalon was like seasons.
But that totally makes sense if you're like it's being interrupted every few days for the OJ trial for like weeks on end.
Yeah, it also went up against in the same time slot Power Rangers, and that at that point was damn near at its height.
That is true.
Like so, it was hard to get much better than Power Rangers. So it was like, I don't know how you're going to top that.
I mean, by comparison, I don't know if I could go back and watch Power Rangers.
Oh, buddy. Yeah, I bet you there's some Power Rangers stuff that... I remember Power Rangers in Space, I think, the most. I think that was the one I watched. Like, I think that's about the time I got off the Power Ranger train.
I mean, I remember watching some of the original stuff, like, because it came on, like, right about when I got home.
Yeah. But no, Gargoyles was my jam. I just remember that whole stuff. I just thought that was crazy with the O.J. Simpson thing. And then there was going to be a spin-off called Time Dancers, which was going to star Brooklyn, sneaking off to the future. And he was going to meet like with Demona, who was still around, but she'd almost been like now a good guy. Like time is now kind of gone the opposite direction for her, and was going to meet with like the future version of Gargoyles and just like futuristic Manhattan. And then it was going to end with him coming back like 2 minutes after he left, kind of thing. But just a very different character. Things. Yeah.
That would have been really interesting.
Yeah, they did make a couple of video games. There was a video game for the Sega Genesis.
Which was just like a 2D platformer, right?
Yeah, 2D little action platformer. It was made at the same time as the Gargoyles show, so Greg Weisman had no say in it whatsoever, and so it was just kind of like Gargoyles, mostly a name, not necessarily in mythos or playability. And then they had like a tiger game that released in China.
Oh, why didn't we get that here in the States? Tiger game?
Yeah, what was it called? It had a name too. It was like Night something. It was like Night Flight, I think was what it was.
I bet it sounds like you're just flying as a gargoyle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you go those tiger games. And I think the most popular thing that kind of spawned off of this was the convention that fans were able to get together.
The Gathering of the Gargoyles? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Gathering. Yeah. And this thing started in 97, like right after the series ended, and it went on into 2009. And this was just kind of like fans just got together and they started getting some of the creators.
Which is pretty crazy. Which is pretty crazy just for like fans after a show that didn't really have as much longevity or seasons as some other shows to get that kind of like status and following to where you can put together a convention and then get the creators to come out and voice actors and all that and like pretty rad. That's a pretty rad community to get that going.
Oh, I did think this little tidbit was funny. I got this little cliff note here, which was the recaps, because of the 52 episode count, they had to kind of like stretch things out a little bit, and more importantly, they had to kind of rush animation sometimes. So the recaps in the beginning of episodes, like let me recap, was basically them able to take 30 seconds of bad animation out somewhere else in the episode.
So it just created a buffer for them
That
to
was
take
all it
out
was.
bad stuff?
Yeah, they were like, okay, we got 30 seconds. We're allowed to pull out what we hate the most.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I thought that was
That's
great.
actually pretty clever. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some heavy hitters in this year that things when it opened up, Batman the Animated Series was just about wrapping up. Although Bruce Timm did have some words to say about Gargoyles.
I think the gist of it is he was not a fan.
Yeah, what was it? Do you have the quote? It was some weird.
Oh, I can find it in 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah. It was namby-pamby.
So Bruce Timm of Batman the Animated Series, along with other DC projects, what he thought of Gargoyles was kind of namby-pamby with all that Celtic fantasy crap.
Oh, Bruce Timm. As much as I love Batman.
And that was in 99, in an interview.
Wow, 99. It's already been done by then, give credit where
He really
credit's
just
due.
didn't like it.
Wow.
I wonder if it's because they stole people from him.
Oh, you know what? I didn't think about that, but I guess
I just now thought about that. I'm like, what if they poached
They took Frank.
But they poached a good chunk of people from
bunch of people.
Batman.
Yeah.
Not that I bet Batman didn't really suffer for it, but I bet he could have a vendetta. Oh, it's Hunter's Moon all over again.
Gotta let it go. Gotta let it go. I'm trying to think now of Keith David. I'm sure he has. I'm trying to think if Keith David has ever starred in anything in the Bruce Timm universe of things. I'm sure he has in all the history.
I mean,
I know at least Michael Dorn, who was also in Gargoyles as Cold Stone. He played Kiloback or something in Superman the Animated Adventure. So I know there's some crossover for sure.
I mean, Keith David has so many acting credits. It would not be surprising if that was one of his voiceover credits.
Yeah, you know who I didn't find in the voiceover credits for Gargoyles, who was literally in everything in the 90s, was Mark Hamill. He did a lot of stuff.
He wasn't in Gargoyles at one point?
I don't think so. I couldn't find him.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, he was very prolific as a voice actor.
Oh, at that point in time. I mean, he was still riding the Joker high, but he was also playing I think he was playing the Green Goblin in the Spider-Man cartoon, which I think aired the same time frame. And I'm trying to think, I got some of the other hits from this year that were definitely going on. Yeah, I would say probably, I guess that. So, and maybe he was just living that
Oh,
Batman
it is also around this time that a series that we'll be doing on our next episode was also airing.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
Overall, I would say Gargoyles holds up pretty well with its the story, the mythology, some of the character development. Obviously, it's a kids show from the mid-90s, so you have to forgive some of the bad dialogue or weird pacing. But overall, the world is, I think, rich and interesting enough that if they ever wanted to reboot it, I don't think they'd have a problem figuring out material.
Yeah, I found rewatching a lot of these episodes very easy. It wasn't punishing or felt like a chore or anything, which I'm sure some of the shows that we will do are going to be a little harder than this. This one was a fairly good starting point.
Yeah, no, I think this was a good one, especially starting with something we've both seen. Because there are definitely going to be ones that we haven't, and we won't have any reference point. And hopefully this experience of podcasting tightens up and we're...
Yeah. Let us, as we wrap this up, let us just say thank you for listening. This is the first episode. We hope to tighten this up a bit, get your guys' approval. We'd love to hear from you. So by all means, please check out our Facebook page. So Tune In For What, and let us know what you'd like to see, what you want us to see. Yeah, it's probably the better thing.
Any recommendations whatsoever? I mean, we have a curated list, but the more we look into it, it's so vast, especially when you get to one season shows and things that you totally just weren't even aware of at the time. So yeah, if you have any recommendations, feel free to post those, and we'll definitely take a look at it. Throw it on our list if it's not on there.
Yeah, and it looks like next week we will be doing
Dexter's Laboratory.
Yes,
which is a series I did not grow up at all watching, and I have never seen it.
I'm excited to go back and revisit this. I think it'll hold up better than I thought it did.
And some amazing careers came out of it.
Oh,
already doing a little bit of research.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in for Tune In For What.
Thank you.
Catch you next week. Thanks for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedbacks, and what cartoons from your past you would like us to check out next. Please hit us up on Facebook and Twitter at Tune In For What, and we hope to catch you next week. Take care.